Welcome to Medicine, Motherhood, and Missions, the podcast where we dive deep into impactful and inspiring conversations with amazing professionals who've turned their challenges into stepping stones for success. I'm Johanna, your host, and each time we meet, we'll explore the stories and journeys of remarkable individuals who are PAs, doctors, professionals, mothers, and mission-driven changemakers, from the halls of the hospitals to the hearts of our homes, and into the communities we serve. Join us as we uncover the challenges, triumphs, and everything in between, and see life through each other's perspective. If you're seeking fulfillment in your career and life, I've got something special for you too. Download our free guide on how to be a fulfilled provider. It's packed with tips and insights to help you thrive while balancing the many hats you wear. And for all those parents out there dreaming big while raising little ones, check out Little Evie's Big Dreams children's book series, available now on Amazon. These heartwarming stories inspire kids to chase their own dreams, just like you're chasing yours. So grab your favorite cup of coffee or tea, settle in, and get ready for uplifting conversations that will leave you inspired and equipped to make a greater impact. Let's jump in. Hi, friends. I am so excited today. We have Kristin Burton. She is a practicing PA in pulmonary and critical care medicine. She's also the founder of Millionaires in Medicine, a company designed to promote financial literacy to medical professionals. Inspired by her own journey from $161,000 in student loan debt to being a millionaire at 31 years old. She has previously been an adjunct faculty at Franklin University PA program, affiliate faculty at Butler University PA program, and has served on the board of the Indiana Academy for Physician Assistants. She's married to her high school sweetheart and is the proud mom of a toddler. When she's not helping medical professionals build wealth, she is traveling with her family and expanding her amateur sommelier knowledge through working towards a WSET Level 3 certification. Very well-rounded person. Thanks, Kristin, for joining us on Medicine, Motherhood, and Missions podcast. And so excited to hear your story, your journey. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I mean, right now, the financial climate has, of course, kind of changed in the here and now. So people are a little bit more interested in how to be financially savvy. Of course, your Millionaires in Medicine program and educational coaching program is for healthcare professionals, especially all of us having student loan debt. So tell us, how did you, come to this journey? How did you become a PA? A little bit about yourself.
Sure. I became a PA in 2016, almost 10 years ago, which is wild. And have spent my whole professional career pretty much in the hospital, doing hospital medicine, inpatient cardiology, and subsequently critical care. So that's the clinician side. Uh-huh. In terms of the business, really, the whole thing got started by my own struggles. When I graduated PA school, there really wasn't anyone speaking to PAs about money. There was Dave Ramsey, who obviously is like for the masses. Mm-hmm. And then there was a lot of content that was really specific to physicians, but it banked upon you having a long residency, fellowship, a specific salary at the end, and a lot of it wasn't applicable. And so what I ended up seeing was that we were kind of left out of the equation. Despite earning six figures, despite still having a whole lot of debt, there just wasn't anything for us. And so I kind of fumbled my way through. I started by just going, okay, I'm going to follow the Dave Ramsey plan. And I did that for my student loans. And it really wasn't until I looked up on the other side of that I realized, oh, there's more to this money thing, because I had dealt with the student loans. And we're not wealthy. We don't have assets. I still have to go to work. And it's like it didn't create the lifestyle that I thought it was going to. And so I really kind of took a deep dive into the world of personal finance as a whole. What does it mean to build wealth? What does it mean to invest? What does it mean to reduce your tax bill? What does it actually look like to create an asset base? And then through that whole process, I realized, okay, there's a lot of folks who want to know the same thing. And this whole business was born.
Yeah. So, I mean, take us through, I mean, because you were practicing as a PA, and I think what we were talking about last time and all too, is that you were just like, I'm just going to get through the debt, work 500 different jobs, just kind of work and pay as you go. But then you realized, wait a second, I still don't have any extra cash building up, right?
Yeah.
So how did you create a business out of thinking you want to help educate others?
It's funny that you asked that. Both of my parents are entrepreneurs. Okay. And I spent my whole life watching them build businesses. And I thought, I am never going to do that. I don't want that kind of job. Anyone who knows a business knows it never ends, right? Like it'll be whatever, 9:00 on a Tuesday and there are things happening. And so I was like, I don't want to do that. I want a job where you go to work and you go home and that's it. And then it's funny, it's like that mindset that an entrepreneur has of like, oh, I see a problem that exists. I bet I could create a solution to help. That must have stuck in some little way, because really pretty early on, I realized this is actually a genuine industry-wide problem for PAs, for NPs, for pharmacists, and systematic education actually is the solution. And so really pretty early, I went to myself, this actually is a true business opportunity where I could actually start something to help people beyond like, hey, I'm going to have coffee with a colleague and give them a few tips. Like I could actually help people that I don't know, people that live in other states, people that work in other subspecialties. And I think the only reason I saw it through that lens was probably those little seeds that were planted at the kitchen table when I was 7, listening to my parents talk.
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting. And because the seeds of the entrepreneurship were planted at that time, and understanding the problem solving, finding that solution in business. But like, how did you end up like reaching out to others to help them in finances? And how did you, get into that? Because I know you said you wanted to help people, like not just in your own state and other things, but you focused because, you mentioned the Dave Ramsey plan and other programs aimed for physicians or things like that. But why allied healthcare professionals? That, like, what made us so different than the other two categories?
Honestly, the whole process started as like very grassroots. I had people that I worked with that knew me, or people that were like acquaintances of people that I worked with that reached out and asked for individual, like, hey, can we meet up? Can we have a Zoom? Can we whatever? Can we help? Can we do this? And then I ended up getting asked to be on a couple of podcasts hosted by PAs. And actually, I'll never forget this. A PA, his name's actually Chris Darce, if any of you happen to know him, but I was on his podcast, and it has to have been like 5 or 6 years ago. And we got off and he said, hey, just so you know, like there's such a need for just PAs, and you obviously being a PA have like unique insight into that. You could totally like just serve PAs with their personal finances and just focus on that. And so I remember thinking like, really? But there was those little comments kind of early on that started the whole process. When I started doing this, I did not have a social media. I didn't have a website. I didn't have anything. I was literally just word of mouth and just like meeting people and like getting asked to do a couple of things, getting asked to speak, getting asked to be on a podcast. And then the rest kind of grew out of it. So it started out again, like very grassroots. And then over time, I realized, although NPs tend to have lower student loan debt than PAs, The process through which we go through training and then ultimately that we get compensated ends up putting us in similar buckets financially. And
Right.
really pharmacists fall into a very similar category in terms of student loan burden to income ratios and things along those lines. And so I realized that really for the allied medical professionals, as you called it, there's a lot of overlap and the general structure tends to be pretty similar, especially as PAs do more residency and fellowships that are 1 to 2 years. That aligns really well with the pharmacy model. And so you end up seeing strategically, from a money standpoint, a lot of overlap in planning there.
Yeah. And just like, thinking about the mindset in pursuing this goal, you didn't have an MBA, you weren't a financial coach, you had gone to school to be a PA and you were practicing PA. And so what took that mindset to be like, you know what, I can help educate others in their finances. I'm going to overcome that imposter syndrome, right?
Yeah.
And pursue this goal. So what was that seed that, grew for you to overcome that and be like, I can be a top tier educator in this arena?
Yeah, really good question. For me, it transitioned. It started with I have a pretty core belief that you can't actually help anyone do anything you haven't done. And so it started with me going, how am I going to generate excellent results in my own financial life? And then from those results, I can feel confident of like, hey, I'm not just saying, hey, investing's a great idea, or, this is what this looks like to build assets. I'd actually done it. And then slowly that transitioned to out of the realm of, hey, I've had personal success to, hey, actually the people we've helped have had a lot of success and they've become millionaires and they've bought investment properties and they've done all this stuff. And so then you end up getting to feel like, okay, we're helping other people get results too. So obviously there's some good stuff going on here. Those things help kind of overcome the limiting beliefs of, am I going to be helpful? Am I going to be able to provide value? I really didn't start talking about this stuff until I had achieved it. And so that was what I drew from. And you're going to have that imposter syndrome no matter what. I mean, I still have it now. You'll have it all the time. That's just like the nature of doing anything hard. But the thing that has helped me overcome that more than anything else is putting people in my immediate circle who are doing similar things. Even if it's not in personal finance, they're building businesses, they're investing in real estate, they're going out and doing stuff that is difficult to do. And they're overcoming their own fears and anxieties to do it. And so it kind of, what do they say? You end up like the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with. I've just gotten really intentional about who those 5 people are and making sure that they're people that are growing personally and professionally so that I can kind of experience that same emotional construct.
Yeah. That's awesome advice. Yeah, especially about who we keep around us, who we allow into our lives to speak words that are encouraging when we're doing hard stuff, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And starting new things. But why financial coaching versus just like, hey, this is a book you can download. I've, written 5 steps to get wealthy, why coaching?
Good question. I'll say I've done all the other things. Like we have the ebooks, we have made courses, I've done all sorts of stuff. The tricky part about personal finance is that almost all of it is modifying your behaviors and your lifestyle to implement the system. And you can have a great idea of what you should do, but if you don't actually create the change in your own life to implement it, it is irrelevant. It doesn't matter. Great example. There's a lot of folks that like talk about doing a backdoor Roth IRA or have heard of it. But if you don't actually execute the thing, you don't know it, right? Like learning something doesn't equate to knowledge. Knowledge is the execution. And so the coaching piece is the only thing I've ever done that actually brought about the execution. Like when we would have just on-demand courses, people would passively take them. they wouldn't implement. And I would actually hear back from them and I'm like, man, you didn't do the stuff, like you're not getting the result, and you might know what you should do now, but like nothing has changed in your life. Where with a coaching program, when you get to walk alongside someone and actually like look at their monthly budget and figure out how can you implement, how can we actually create change? That is the only thing I've ever done where people are like, this is the result. This is the life change. I can reduce hours. I change jobs. I earn more money. We negotiate, whatever. All of those things are like tangible, actionable success. And that's the like only reason to have a business. You know what I mean? Like if people aren't getting a result, then what's the point?
Yeah.
And so the coaching is the thing that generates the result. That's what I've found. It's really hard for someone to passively learn about something that would require a big life change, and then actually go in and do it without a little extra boost of accountability along the way.
Yeah, exactly. That word accountability was what was going through my head when you were talking about it. And I think that's why coaching in general has kind of become like something that's, commonplace now, because in the healthcare field, health coaching, life coaching, people are wanting that accountability and help along the way. And I can see how it's like more of like a guidance that you have someone that you can contact and speak to, and have someone on your side kind of walking you through the steps, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, reading a book, but actually implementing the steps is the hardest part. And especially in finances, because speaking to like, when you guys as a married couple made that switch in mentality of, not just kicking off the debt, but creating wealth. I mean, doing that implementation, execution that you were talking about, that's the trickiest part, right? Actually moving forward to make that change, especially, with the married couple and, two people getting on the same page. How did that work for you guys? And what was that change that made you switch over to actually getting it done yourself?
That's so hard. Anyone who's tried to do money with another human knows it's hard, right? Like whether it's a long-term partner or a spouse, it's tricky. But to be frank, if you are in a long-term relationship, in my experience, and again, I've talked to thousands of medical professionals about money, it's probably one of the most predictive factors for long-term success. Like if you are able to get on the same page as your spouse, really approach it as a united front and a genuine team, you're going to go way further than if you are not. And actually, it's interesting. Out of IU Bloomington, there was a study recently in the last couple of years showing that people who had combined finances not only had more financial success, but more happiness, which is interesting. Obviously, social science data is a little different than our RCTs in the world of medicine, but interesting nonetheless. And I think it speaks volumes to how important the topic is. My husband and I grew up where his family was a really big Dave Ramsey family. And so he was really against debt, really from the beginning, but didn't know very much about investing. Anyone who is a Dave Ramsey fan recognizes that the bulk of what he talks about is about the debt aspect of money, and that when it comes to building wealth, there's less and less in that regard. That's not really what he's known for. And so that was my husband's lens, was like, let's get rid of debt. It was me that really became interested in investing, not only in the stock bond market, but in real estate and in syndications and other things. And he didn't really know a lot about that at the time. And so I think one of the things that had allowed us to become successful was that as I kind of brought these topics forward of like, hey, I'm interested in this. He didn't know much about it and he had some hesitations, but he was open. And I took the approach of, opening the conversation, saying, I have an interest. I'd like us to learn more, and then plugging in some third-party resources to help him hear from someone else besides the spouse. So, we can all be the nagging spouse at times of what this could be. And so I would just intentionally play a certain podcast in the car, or leave a certain book on the coffee table, or bring up investing in real estate with a family friend who I knew did that at a party. Things like that, where I would just kind of plug information. And eventually we kind of got on the same page, but it wasn't instantly. It wasn't like I said, hey, I want to go do these things. And he was like, yeah, whatever. He didn't know anything about it. So I had to respect a little bit that his journey was going to look different to get there. And then now we're 100% on the same page. And as a matter of fact, I don't do anything for our real estate investments. I do 10%, and he manages all of that. But it took a while of just both of us kind of going, hey, giving each other a little bit of space to grow and figuring out what that was going to look like over time. We've been together for 15 years. So there's been a lot of personal growth for each of us over those 15 years. It doesn't happen at the same time, doesn't happen at the same pace. It's never convenient, right? It's just the way that the things kind of settle out. But one thing I think is really helpful is having what I would call a money date, an intentional set aside conversation about money. And when I say it, I don't necessarily mean look at your budget and plan out what you're going to spend for the month of June. I mean, sit down and go hey, what did you want retirement to look like? Do you plan on retiring at a certain age? Did you think that we were going to travel a bunch and have a pretty expensive lifestyle? Or were you picturing us selling our house and buying a camper? Did you think we were going to pay for kids' college? Is that not something that matters to you? And having the big picture conversations in an environment where, hopefully you're at a restaurant with a nice glass of wine. You're not listening to your kid, toddler, mommy, mommy, mommy. Create some space and then have the big talks, because the only way that you will ever align a monthly budget that actually creates the life you want if you both know the life you want. And so having those conversations is helpful. I think a lot of people, especially people with little kids, which I get, that's my life season right now. You get so caught up in the day-to-day, you just get so busy. Having conversations like that never make it to the radar.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm in the toddler age too. And it's finding time for us as a couple to have a conversation just in general is hard. And regardless of an actual productive financial conversation. It takes a lot of effort, of effort. And I think that's the thing is effort and conversation. And what are we making time for? And that's a huge thing with any of this is what are we making time for that matters most, right?
For sure.
And so speaking of mindset though, what are limiting factors that you've seen in people that inhibits them from creating that mindset shift to investing or building wealth or even getting rid of debt even,
Honestly, I could probably talk about that for 2 hours, but one of the big things for medical professionals in particular is because there tends to be an emotional burden associated with debt. We focus all of our money energy on that. And we're the student loans, the student loans, the student loans. And we completely negate all of the wealth building piece. There's very little recognition of what it actually takes to even just retire at 65 and maintain the same standard of living that you had as a medical professional. I think 99% of medical professionals have no idea what that takes. And so there is no emotional burden attached to that. You don't realize, oh my gosh, I need $4 or $5 million, right? You don't know. And so there's just this kind of floating around oh, I'll get to that later. And there's no emotional urgency to get it done, where the student loans have that inherent factor. That's probably the number one thing to get past is that not only should you feel an emotional I need to deal with my student loans, whether it's the multitude of strategies available. But you need that same emotional urgency to deal with the fact that you need to be able to retire, feed yourself, pay your medical expenses, and hopefully like maintain a reasonable standard of living. That doesn't happen for most medical professionals. So getting over that piece, if you can solidify that in your mind, I think it really helps it crystallizes for you of, okay, I have to deal with my investing while I'm dealing with my debt. And I can't really isolate one versus the other. That's the first one. The second one I see of that really like sets people back in our space from succeeding with money is this weird belief of like, well, I don't actually earn that much, so I'm not going to be wealthy. Like in our world, we see people that earn a lot as like a subspecialized surgeon that earns 7 figures or something. And you're like, well, they're going to be wealthy. I'm not going to be wealthy because I'm just a 6-figure earner, right? Like that's not like it's a bad salary. It's not. Yeah. And so we kind of write ourselves off a little bit. And sure, like maybe you will never drive the $200,000 sports car, but you absolutely can and should become a multimillionaire. And you have the total capacity to go buy the investment property, to, go actually out there, like create cash flowing assets for yourself. We all have the ability to do that on our incomes, but because we see ourselves as not the highest income person in our social circle at work, we tend to discount that. It's silly. But it is a very common limiting belief that PAs and Ps and pharmacists face.
Comparison is the thief of joy. Yeah, comparison. And I can totally see that, how we, work in these medical communities and are comparing ourselves versus just focusing on what we have, the assets we have as individual families, individual people, instead of comparing our assets to somebody else's.
Right.
You have to work with what you have, right? So, but does like the other type of mindset of like this American dream type of mentality come into play when you see, PAs, nurse practitioners, and pharmacists or other health specialists, like, this idea of like, well, I got to have it all now kind of thing. How do you deal with that mindset as, because you get your paycheck, you're like, well, now I can spend just like I always wanted to and live the life I wanted to live,
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll say the American dream is even harder right now than it even was 10 years ago, with the housing market being what it is and home prices way outpacing income increases. So the idea of, you get the dream house, you get the dream car, is that the American dream? Is it attainable? My own belief about the whole topic is that you can probably have everything you want. You just can't have it all right now. And you maybe can't have it all at once. But like, if you say, hey, this is my dream house, this is my dream car, if you play your cards right, you can probably have it. It's just not going to be the second year of clinical practice. That's the thing. And maybe you do it that way, but you'll be broke forever and probably not the best path, right? Like there is a way for you to have the lifestyle you want and for you to be able to achieve those metrics that are important to you, whether it's home ownership of a certain style or whatever. You can get there, but there has to be an order and a cadence to that in order for it to be in alignment with you also succeeding financially. And so, like, for example, housing prices are astronomical, right? And so a lot of medical professionals are like, you graduate and you're like, I want to buy a house. Well, you can use a medical professional loan to get into a house for much less than 20% down, avoid PMI. In some cases, even, 3% down or less, which is great. But if you don't want to be house broke, the price point of the house you buy with your 3% down is going to have to be lower than what you think for your,
Mm-hmm.
new clinician income. Now, the hack, the way around that, to be able to say, hey, I want a bigger house, but I also simultaneously don't want to be house poor with this huge mortgage payment, is to put more money down. And so, you can't do that when it's your first year practice, but you can do that later. Like when you maybe buy a starter house, not the dream house, build up some equity, save up some cash, you're investing as well, you're dealing with your student loan strategy as well. Then you're saying, hey, I'm going to move into the dream house, and now I'm going to be able to put 35% down, 40% down. Now I get to afford it, and I get to have a mortgage payment that doesn't allocate, 30% of my household monthly gross to housing, so that I can still succeed with money. I can still travel. I can still do all those things. But there's that delay. Like you don't get it now. That's where the tricky part, because we have created, I think with social media more than anything, an expectation that if you are successful, you have that now. Well, not necessarily. If you're willing to delay most things, you can probably have it all. I mean, in my own personal money journey, we bought a house that was affordable on one salary that wasn't a PA salary, because I wasn't a PA yet. I was in school. And it's small. And we've lived in it for 12 years. And it's only now, after achieving a bunch of financial goals, that we said, okay, now we'll do the house that we've been talking about for a decade, and move into our quote unquote dream home. It's not exactly the dream home, but it's pretty close. And it's like, that took a decade of planning to do it in a way that wouldn't make us poor. But we were willing to wait. We were willing to delay a little bit, and practice a little bit of delayed gratification along the way. And so now when we get to have it in a healthy way, where we don't have to worry about money to have it. So you can get there. You just have to be willing to put in some work first.
Yeah. Yeah. And speaking of different money mindsets, tell us a little bit about different types of beliefs that would affect how we spend or not spend, or what would be more beneficial, what would be less beneficial in a mindset towards financial freedom.
Yeah, I think you have to be willing to give yourself the freedom and ability to spend money, right? That's the purpose of money. It's one purpose of money. Not all money should be saved or invested or given to charitably or whatever. You do have to have money to live off of. And you should be able to enjoy your life as you go. And so any successful money plan has to be a combination of the two. Now, you can't fall into the side of, I'm only going to spend money now because, the idea of delaying until the later, what if later never comes, etc. You can't fall into that trap, because that trap, in my mind, shows complete and total disrespect for the 80-year-old version of yourself who needs to live. So there's that, where you can kind of almost get into a point where you're like spending so freely that you just feel like, I'm going to enjoy my life now, forget what happens later kind of thing. But then there's this whole other end of the spectrum of people who are almost miserly, where you feel like, I can't spend money. I'm going to shame myself if I do. I should be saving or investing everything. And for that end of the spectrum, it's almost just as unhealthy, because there is absolutely no purpose in having a whole bunch of assets to enjoy life later if you don't enjoy life at all now. So there has to be this middle road. And for me, the thing that has always just completely released any kind of spending guilt is having an intentional cash flow system. Now, most people are like, oh, whatever, I have a budget and I don't spend more than I earn, therefore I'm okay. You'll never succeed with money that way. It's not enough to make sure you're not a sinking ship financially. You have to have an intentional cash flow plan that actually accomplishes your short, medium, and long-term goals. Okay. But once you've got that in place, and you can say definitively, yeah, my retirement's on track. If you want to pay for your kids' college, that's on track. I need to replace the car next year. We got a little sinking fund going for it. Those things are happening. And so then when something comes up where I want to spend money, like right now I'm super pregnant, I was like, I kind of want a massage. And then you don't feel bad about spending the money because you know, like I'm doing the work too, and life is about both.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you have that plan in place, you can eliminate most spending negative beliefs because you can kind of like look at yourself and go, we're good. Like I should spend this money. I should enjoy this money. I think the people find that balance, that right in the middle of I'm making the long-term stuff happen, but I'm still going on vacation. You know, I'm still doing the once a year vacation. I'm still going out to eat with friends. I'm still doing the things that bring me joy.
Yeah.
They're like winning at all things. And there is really genuinely a way to do both on a PA salary. It's just going to take some intentional spending. You know, you can't spend like all your money door dashing your lunch every single day to work if you want to go out with friends on the weekend. Like, but if the friend time's valuable, then like do the friend time, pack your lunch. You know, there's so many different ways to do it. You just have to really ask yourself the hard questions of like, what actually brings me joy? What are the things that I'm spending money on that when I look back at my life, I'm going to be like, yes, I'm glad I did that. And what are the things I'm spending money on that won't matter at all, even next year?
Yeah. And I think like, even when you were talking about earlier, the difficulties like in reaching those goals that we may have, it may take longer. Especially in this economic climate, sometimes things are going to be a little bit more expensive for us to have to save towards or, invest more or things like that. But do we, growing up, how did you, you mentioned you had entrepreneurial parents who had planted seeds of entrepreneurship, creativity, solving problems. What about like financial backgrounds? Like how did, those types of influences influence the way we think of finances, even in difficult economic climates or changes in job situations or wanting to step out of jobs into different goals, like you stepped into this entrepreneurship journey. Of course that was several years ago, but, now in this climate, how would you advise people to, go about, things, financially in different situations that like we're facing now?
Yeah. So are you thinking like in terms of should you start a business right now in this economic climate, or just if you're like worried about inflation and the cost of things rising?
Yeah. I think, worried about cost of inflation and cost of things rising. And, how do people, challenge themselves and face things, with a mindset change, even in finances now? Because I think fear would be even more now in regards to spending or even investing, because they're like, well, the stock market or, so fear plays a lot of a role in, I think, finances in particular.
Yeah. The first thing to do, I think, is just surround yourself with actual data, because a lot of that stuff, if you look like when were most successful businesses started? In recessions. When is the opportunity to build the most wealth? It's in recessions. It's when there are housing crises and people can purchase stuff at below what would be considered like market value. It's when the stock market declines and quote shares are on sale. And so the more you surround yourself by like, look at historical data, like what is truth? It is not that like, oh, the stock market declined because of some tariff announcement, and now like I should go to cash, burn the boat and put everything in CDs. Like those things are entirely emotionally driven. And if
Mm-hmm.
you look at successful people in the past, that's not how they act. That's not the reaction that they have. And so if you can find like what has actually worked for people before and then model a little bit of that in yourself, you can end up actually taking advantage of economic downturns. If you're 30 years old and you're investing and the stock market takes a huge tumble, it's incredible. You have this huge buying opportunity and you get to go in and buy a bunch of shares. Remember that like wealth is built not in the share price, it's the number of shares you own. And so it's like you have to actually like take advantage. Now, if you're 58, you're a few years from retirement and you have an overly aggressive portfolio and you have a huge stock market decline, you may be in trouble. But for young investors, like this is actually anytime you see this market volatility, big market declines, like you have to learn how to be someone that skis in winter, as they say, instead of like freezing outside, right?
Yeah.
And so in my mind, it's who you surround yourself with.
Mm-hmm.
It's the inputs, the mental inputs that determine the outputs. And those two things are totally under your control.
Mm-hmm.
You control how much news you watch. You can control how much clickbait you click when you're scrolling through your social media, right?
Yeah.
And if you want a different output, then put in a different mental input and remind yourself like how truly successful people operate in times of huge change, huge uncertainty, and adversity.
Yeah. I love that. That's beautifully said. And I think that's what we should focus on is standing the test of time and not going by our emotions. That's the key thing here. Data, data, and following things logically. Um, yeah, because I think like, you know, a lot of outside factors just try to create fear
Yeah.
and, build on our emotions. And we have to like step outside of that and think of things in a very logical, analytical point of view sometimes and
Yeah.
just be like, wait, what's the goal here? What are we wanting out of life? What are we wanting to change? And because even as you said, businesses are built in recessions,
Yeah.
and so even stepping out of that PA or healthcare role into something new, it's just thinking about the data and how things are going to, be successful versus just like, oh, this is maybe not the time or the news is saying this or whatever, right?
Right. I mean, honestly,
Yeah.
most successful people have two key qualities,
Mm-hmm.
resourcefulness and grit. If you have
Mm-hmm.
those two things, you don't have to be that smart. All you got to do is stay in the game,
Mm-hmm.
And the more that you can just go, yep, circumstances are not great. How is this going to serve me? How can I pivot? And then continue, even though it's hard, you'll end up winning in the long term.
Yeah. Yeah. And so how has, creating these businesses with your family affected or changed you? We discussed a little bit about this with motherhood and you having a daughter. Tell us about things that you kind of like um, learned as you've become a mom while pursuing these businesses and still working in critical care as a PA, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, of course, if you're a parent of a small child, you know that time management is like so it's like outside of that piece, bigger picture, I think honestly, there are very few things I could have done that will have a more positive impact on her and subsequently the son we're about to have than doing this for
Mhm.
a few reasons, probably not what you would think. I mean, one of which is, I've built investing systems for the kids and things, and that's great.
Mhm.
But the bigger piece is that in order to build any kind of business, you have to learn business, right? Like I didn't
Mhm.
learn business in school. I have a biology undergrad. I went to PA school. That's like these are new skills.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've had to put myself in circles that I would have never been in, with people I would have never met, who, frankly, are doing things way bigger than anything I would have ever even imagined for myself, because that's not the little circle of influence that I had before.
Mm-hmm.
And so now, like, I'll go to marketing events, or, business scaling events, or grab a coach or whatever I'm doing to increase my own skill set. And then I find all of these things of people who are shaping the way that their kids view the world in a different way than I would have as a parent before. I would have done all the standard things, right? Like low screen time and healthy food, we get outside, whatever. But like, I wouldn't have told my 12-year-old, hey, you need to start a business. And I'm not talking about a lemonade stand, I'm talking about a real business.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't have said to my 16-year-old, when you go to college, I think we really ought to look at a multifamily. Like, you need to learn how to maintain a rental house and keep the books and do all the things. I wouldn't have said any of those things, but now my circle's different. I see how the other people are creating mindsets for their kids that will allow them to succeed and face, honestly, problems, but better problems. And then I go, oh, that's what I can do for my kids that I would have never done otherwise. So I think that number one thing, just my awareness of creating harder problems for them to solve, will probably change their lives more than anything else. And if I hadn't started this business and I would have just continued down the life path I was on before, I think zero of that would have happened for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's like what our whole conversation is, mindset. We learn how to face problems. We learn how to not compare ourselves, not have to look at the circumstances alone, but to really identify what the problem is and come up with a solution. And that's how we face any battle in life, right? Is we face it with an attitude that there's a solution, there is something that can be a good outcome. And that's what you're teaching your kids. That's what we hope to teach all our kids, right? Is how to, because life is going to be full of battles to be fought. And life is not going to be an easy, run through the fields.
And it shouldn't be. You don't learn anything that way,
Exactly. I think the best lessons are learned through mistakes and difficulties. That's when those strengths come out. And you learn what you're really good at. Absolutely. And so I love that you're teaching your kids that. And I know they're still small, but they are already, ingrained. And I think that's great. That's what we need to do, is start them small so that they have those foundational qualities that will take them through the test of time. Right. Yep.
It's crazy what they learn even little.
Oh my goodness, yes.
I mean, my daughter's 3.5. And this week I was in the dining room and I had my laptop out and she walked in with my husband. She said, Mom, are you doing a cash on cash return? Because we've been in the acquisition mode for real estate. So we've been analyzing a bunch of properties. And it's like, she doesn't really know what that is, but like, she's 3.5 and the words cash on cash return came out, It's like, we're learning some stuff.
That is awesome. That's so cool. Yeah. They really do pick up whatever we're talking about. So it's so important what we're teaching them. The words that we're using is going to be something that will enhance their life, right? Yeah. And so, but I love it. I love this conversation. It was a different focus on mindset in our finances. And I think that's something that we have to get better at and learn. And, that's how I think the most important part of your coaching program is helping people with that and through that and keeping them accountable, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yes.
And so thank you so much, Kristin. If you have any other few encouraging words or advice that you have, we'd love to hear it. Yeah, I would just say whether you're 25 or 45, anything in between,
tomorrow's a new day, new opportunity to sit down and really figure this stuff out. And so if you listen and you're like, I have this feeling like I'm behind or I'm overwhelmed because I'm not sure how to do this stuff. Remember, I'm not sure how to do this stuff yet, right? You learned how to be a clinician and you can learn this skill set just as well. So put yourself back in the student's shoes. Be willing to, be the person on rotation who doesn't know any of the trade names because you only learn generic, and in circles where you're like, man, I don't quite get it, because you did that for yourself to get where you are clinically. And if you're willing to do it again, then you can end up crushing personal finance in the same way that you crushed your career professionally.
Yeah. Awesome. And I will have all of Kristin's information in the show notes for you guys to check out. Millionaires in Medicine, her coaching program, they have tons of educational resources available for any level of knowledge. So thank you so much, Kristin. I really enjoyed this chat and conversation. And thank you all so much for listening. I hope that you can continue to spark hope in other people's lives, in your own lives, in your families, through that mindset shift. We got to think positive. We got to attack those complications and challenges we face with hope, because there is always hope. Yeah. And thank you so much again. Have a great rest of your week. We'll see you next time. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Medicine, Motherhood, Missions. We hope you found inspiration, insight, and a sense of connection in the stories we shared today. If you've enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe and leave us a review. Your feedback helps us reach more listeners like you. Follow us on Instagram for updates, free downloads, and to join a community of like-minded individuals passionate about making a difference through medicine, motherhood, and mission work. Remember, you're not alone in this journey. Until next time, keep sparking hope, keep healing, keep nurturing, and keep making a difference. This is Johanna signing off from Medicine, Motherhood, Missions. The medical opinions expressed on this podcast are for the informational purposes only and should not be considered as medical advice. Always consult a licensed healthcare provider for personal medical questions or concerns. The views expressed by guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect those of the podcast host.